Is it your expectation that the Department of Homeland Security is going to be shutting down come midnight tomorrow, or do you see an 11th hour opportunity to avert that outcome today?
You know, right now I would have to say that it looks fairly inevitable that we will have a partial shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. I think it's good to frame that, remember, we did pass a lot of bills and the president signed into law. So 96% of the government is fully functioning. But that critical piece of Homeland Security in all likelihood will shut down. But I am for extending the time for debate. I am for making improvements such as Senator Britt was able to negotiate into the Homeland Security bill. We need to move beyond this and make sure that our Coast Guard, and our TSA, and our Secret Service, and our FEMA are all funded along with our Border Patrol and ICE.
Senator, it's good to see you. I wonder your thoughts on this approach that some Democrats are taking in the House. Rosa DeLauro has a bill that would essentially strip ICE itself away from the other agencies under DHS, like the TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard. If the House accomplished that, would that even be entertained in the Senate?
You know, I don't think that's a good strategy. We've got to look at Homeland Security in the whole. It is important that we have internal enforcement of our not just immigration laws, but our ability to work with cities and counties and states to be able to remove people that have been adjudicated and are under deportation orders. And that's what ICE does. And so I'm fully supportive of the efforts that they've moved forward, and the same with Border Patrol. I mean, can we make improvements? Yes. And improvements are built into the bill. More cameras, more training, more IG or, inspectors, inspections. These improvements can be made. They're already built into the bill that the Democrats will not accept. And I think they're using this as a political statement. I think if we pull it out, it becomes even more polarized and more political.
Well, as we consider the politicization of the ICE issue specifically, it of course has been a focal the focal point of that has been in Minnesota and Minneapolis, specifically in the aftermath of the two U.S. citizens who were killed. We learned from Tom Homan, the borders are today, that they are going to be drawing down Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota. Let's take a listen to what Mr. Homan said earlier.
In success that has been made addressing public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement, I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week.
So if we are at the conclusion of this operation, Senator, with the benefit of hindsight, did the operation surge too far?
Well, here, what I'm reading and what he's saying is the key component that he's emphasizing is the coordination between state and local. And I'm not sure that was there before the temperature went way up. And then I think this has been part of the compromise between that Tom Homan was able to forge with state and local authorities and with ICE and Border Patrol. Let's lower the temperature, let's work together as law enforcement officers, and let's get the worst of the worst out of here. And I think those are reasonable propositions. Did it go too far? I think obviously mistakes have been made and had some very life-ending and altering results. And for that, I think we all wish we could go back and change that. But I think lowering the temperature, removing themselves from the operation and leaving it to state and locals, that's what we need to do. We need to have that coordinated effect.
You know, it's interesting, Senator, we've talked to a number of your colleagues, Republican senators, about the issue of demasking, and we've heard the arguments on both sides of it. It appears to be a breaking point, and I'm wondering if demasking is a non-starter for you.
You know, in my view, that's just sort of an issue that I think gains a lot of attention. We just obviously as a nation went through a big masking issue during COVID, but also the protesters in New York, they were all masked. And we were saying, you know, if you're protesting, we need to be able to see your face. And then now we see the same sort of argument on the opposite side. I think that you have to do this on a case-by-case basis. We have to protect our officers. And I think the protesters in Minneapolis showed that they're willing to dox, threaten families, and threaten the health and security of a federal federal law enforcement officer, which in and of itself is pretty frightening. So I think maybe when the temperature goes down, we'll see more abilities for identifications. But I do want to reserve the right for our officers to wear a mask if they feel their life's in danger. Yes.
Senator, I'd like to switch gears as we are expecting later this hour President Trump to be appearing at the White House with the administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, to formally revoke the so-called endangerment finding around greenhouse gases. Lee Zeldin calls this the largest act of deregulation in the history of the United States. But I ask you, given your chairship of the Environment and Public Works Committee, is it too large an act of deregulation? Could this not have negative environmental consequences?
No. We have environmental laws that are strict, stringent, and they're adhered to. What this has done is taken an issue in the early Obama administration and ballooned it up into what can we do for global carbon emissions, and what we see, and if you read articles, different opinion articles from different papers, some that are very liberal papers have said, yes, the endangerment finding went too far. You cannot have the executive take control of the legislative prerogatives of Congress. And that's what's happened, and it's stayed. It's going to be the largest, I think, economic deregulation that we've seen. I'm sure it will be litigated, but I feel confident that he's on firm ground, especially in light of some of the past decisions by the Supreme Court that we've seen that have said the executive and the agencies have to stay within the boundaries that Congress has set, and an endangerment finding goes way beyond that.
Really interesting. I don't know if you were there, Senator, but the President of the United States was awarded the undisputed champion of beautiful clean coal trophy yesterday at the White House. Peabody Energy, Jim Gretsch actually gave it to him in the effort to celebrate an order that the president made directing the Pentagon to buy electricity from coal-fired power plants. What does that mean for the industry in West Virginia, this Pentagon deal?
Well, this provides the certainty to the coal industry, but it also provides a lot of balance and certainty to the nation. Let's just look at this practically. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've had these amazingly low temperatures. If you look at the energy, who's providing the energy to warm our homes, what source? Coal has had a major role here, along with natural gas and nuclear. And so we have to preserve these baseload energy availabilities to do a lot of things, but just the basic needs of heating our homes and making sure that our hospitals are open, all of these things. So the president's a big fan of coal. Coal country loves the president. I was there yesterday. It means a longer life for a lot of our coal producing power plants, but also more coal mining jobs. They're doing it better, safer, and cleaner than they ever have. And it just makes a lot of sense for our nation.
Senator, we just have a minute left, but I know you today have officially signed on to the Save America Act that passed the House of Representatives last night, of course, a voter ID piece of legislation. Your Republican colleague, Senator Lisa Murkowski, has suggested that legislation such as this could have the effect of federalizing elections. We know President Trump has had made some comments about nationalizing elections as well. Is that an idea you stand behind, or do you have concern about that?
Well, yeah, I don't want to federalize our elections so that every state has the same election parameters and our secretaries of states can't form and function their election practices that their legislature puts forward. So this doesn't do this. This basically says you just have to prove that you're an American citizen to vote in an American election. It sounds simple. I would say it's probably not as simple as it sounds, because I think some of the identification issues could pose a challenge to some secretaries of state, whether you need a passport or birth certificate or a real ID card, and some of these issues have been raised. But honestly, it's a simple concept. Many states have voter ID. Mine's one of them.